Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Our subject is Krishna. We are here for Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho, hearing and chanting about Vishnu. Vishnu means Krishna. Krishna is defined as much as he can be defined in one short verse. One verse that is very famous among Gauriya Vaishnavas. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. Krishna is the supreme controller. Or if we take Parama as a noun instead of an adjective, then Krishna is the controller and Krishna is supreme. His form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Actually, it's the defect of the English language that we say it like that. But the real way of saying it is, He is eternity, bliss, knowledge, form. He is. It's not that He has an eternal, blissful, but in English you have to say like that. But it actually means He is eternity, bliss, knowledge, form. In English it sounds strange to say that, so we say it in a different way. But it's not that He is a being with a form. That's a misunderstanding. But the form is Krishna. Anadir Adi. He is both Anadi, beginningless, and Adi, the origin of everything. He is Govinda, the giver of pleasure to the cows, the brahmanas, the senses, the earth, and Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. This is the first verse of the 5th chapter of Sri Brahma Samhita. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on pilgrimage in South India, he came to the temple of Adi Keshavan, which is presently, according to the present political division, it's in Kerala. At that time it was, at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it was in the Travancore state. Travancore, that's the anglicization. Well, Trivandrum is also an anglicization, right? It's Tiruvananthapuram. Make it shorter and shorter. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he heard this being recited in the temple there. And became very pleased to hear this. And he got the manuscript copied. Nowadays, if you want the manuscript copy, you get a photocopy made. Or you scan it. At that time you had to hire a scribe. Someone to write it out by hand on palm leaves, which would have to... It's not that you can just go to the shop and buy some palm leaves. They have to be prepared in advance for writing. So to make a book was not a small endeavor. Of course, this one extant chapter of Brahma Samhita is not very extensive. Yeah, we only have the 5th chapter available. We don't know what nectar is in the previous chapters, and maybe there are some following chapters also. But in this 5th chapter alone, between the first verse and in the prayers with the refrain Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, particularly in these verses, it is a summary of all the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this first verse, which we just recited, describes the majesty of Krishna, His supremacy, Then there is a description of the manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and how Brahma became enlightened with spiritual knowledge after performing austerity. He was enlightened by Divya Saraswati, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord who gives enlightenment. And being granted vision or darshan of the Supreme Lord, he composed prayers in ecstasy. And those prayers are quite famous among they're well known, especially among our ISKCON devotees. Prayers beginning Chintamani Prakara Sagmasu Kalpa Vriksha. Now, this is quite revolutionary actually, if we consider that Brahma, who's born from the massive form of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And Brahma's function is, within the material world, is to create the material world. So it's very much the awe and reverence kind of thing. The massive form of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and Brahma, whose form encompasses the whole, he's sitting on the lotus at the top of the universe, but his form also encompasses, he also pervades the whole universe. It's called Brahman. Brahma's egg is the universe is called that. So Brahma describes Govinda, who is the origin of everything, the original person. But he doesn't describe the opulent, or he doesn't principally describe the opulent four-handed form, but he describes the original form, Govinda, as the two-handed form sporting in Vrindavan. Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kalpa Vriksha. He describes, the first line could be Vaikuntha or Vrindavan, describes the houses, the buildings, the walls, they're all of Chintamani, of wish-fulfilling jewels. And the trees are all wish-fulfilling trees. So that to a materialist that might seem very good. Well, you can get anything you want. Devotees of Krishna only want paraphernalia for serving Krishna. Then, Lakshāvriteshu surabhirapi palayantam. Then Krishna, he is there herding millions of surabhi cows. Now what's that called? Anthropomorphists, those who think that God is a projection, a mental projection of man, they will say, oh, you see, this Krishna cult must have grown up as a cow herder's cult. So they thought that God must be keeping cows, because they keep cows. In the Abrahamic religions, they have this idea of God fights on our side and He smashes all our enemies and throws them into hell. Because that's what they're thinking about. The people are thinking about that and they think God should be like that. That means Judaism, Christianity and Islam. Abrahamic religions. But Brahma was not a cowherd boy. He might have thought that, you would expect that he would think of or envision the Supreme as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, a huge form with great opulence, bigger even than his form. But Brahma, by the grace of Krishna, became enlightened with the ocean of truth, regarding the ocean of truth. And he was revealed that truth. Lakshāvriteshu surabhirapi palayantam Lakshmi sahasrashata sambrahma sevimanam. He is with great affection served by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis. These are Vraja Lakshmis, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. The gopis, they are the Vrindavan goddesses of fortune. Now this is achintya, this is inconceivable. Because if we project our mental powers as far as they can, We could never imagine that God would be a cowherd boy. It's not thinkable. You know, we might think of him as holding a thunderbolt or holding the justice scales, but being a cowherd boy, we couldn't think of God like that. We couldn't imagine him as such. God means supreme. Cowherd boys are not supreme in any sphere. So how can God be a cowherd boy? Well, that's achintya, that's inconceivable. He likes to be. Not that he's accepted that position to belittle himself or demean himself. But that is his topmost manifestation of himself. He manifests as Rama, the great king, Mahavishnu, the massive form from whom all the universes come, as Antaryami, the indweller within every heart, as Adi Varaha, the pig incarnation, boar incarnation. There are so many forms, but his original form, the topmost form, is that of Govinda, Gopala, Yashomati Nanda, the cowherd boy who is the son of Mother Yashoda. So we have Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, opening with Krishna, as the supreme controller of transcendental form, and then, and there's a description of brief description of the spiritual world, and then how the material universes are manifested. Brahma is manifested from the lotus, from Garbhodaksha Vishnu's navel. Brahma is bewildered as to the source of his origin. Having a natural philosophical inclination, he wonders, where did I come from? Who am I? What am I doing sitting here on this lotus? Unable to find out by his own endeavor, he heard the 2 syllables tappa and understood that he should perform austerity. Tappa means austerity. So having performed tapasya for a long time, he was blessed with a vision of Krishna and understood the nature of reality. Not everyone who performs tapasya for a long time understands the nature of reality. It depends on why they're performing austerity. One who performs austerity for material gain does not get anything except material gain. So Brahma, he was not interested in material gain, and he was also highly qualified even before he started. So very quickly, in terms of cosmic time, very quickly, he became acquainted with the ocean of truth. Truth. It's Tattva Saga, the ocean of, ocean of truth. And he realized himself that although I'm sitting in this universe, which yet to be created by myself, yet to be organized, as a four-headed God, actually, my real position is that I'm a maidservant of Krishna. So we have all this technical information about Brahma and the universe, and then Brahma bursts out in ecstasy describing Krishna in Vrindavan. It is unimaginable to those who are searching for the Supreme. The Supreme must be vast, great, powerful, and very difficult to access. That's one of Krishna's names. Durgam, difficult to access. So Krishna is all those things, but in his supreme aspect, he is a cowherd boy. Brahma describes Krishna. We all know. Venam kvadantam aravinda jalayata kshambar havatan samasitam buddhasundarangam kandara pakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindavadi purusham tamaham bhajam. The very sound of Brahma's recitation is beautiful, and the subject he is describing is beautiful. With a flute to his lips, his eyes like lotus petal, with a peacock feather in his hair, and his body as beautiful as a black cloud. His bodily beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds is the way Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has presented this. Then Kandara Prakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. His beauty is a specific beauty that is attractive, even more than that of millions of cupids. This, Brahma says, is the original person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who I worship. Alola Chandra Kala Sadvana Malya Vangshi. He has swinging earrings, Chandraka earrings. His body is decorated with a garland of forest flowers. We always hear about Krishna being decorated with forest flowers. When there's a temple, it's very important to have fresh flowers for Krishna. More important than having gold and jewels is to have fresh flowers for Krishna. So a temple should have a flower garden, so that fresh flowers can be regularly offered to Krishna. But if there's some forest nearby, then just the devotees can go and pick the flowers that grow just wild by themselves and make a garland. That will be even more pleasing to Krishna. What's the next one? Alola Chandrakala Sadvana Malya Vangshi Ratnanga Dampraniya Kaili Kalaliva. So, his whole body is decorated. He has forest flowers and his whole body is decorated with various jewels. He's always engaged in amorous pastimes. Amorous means love, pranay, prema, and very artistic also. All the arts are manifest in Vrindavan, all for serving Krishna. Shamang Tribhanga Lalita Niyataf Prakasham. And his threefold bending blackish form, his charming form is always manifest. So like this in various ways, Brahma, he describes the beautiful form and pastimes of Krishna. And he also warns, Pantastu koti shatavat sampragamyo vayor atapi manaso muni pungavanam sopyasti yad prapatta avichincha tatam. That's it, yes. Govindamadi purusham tamahambhajam. That's the important word. That Krishna is avichincha tattva. Even if we have a very good brain and we think about it a lot, we still, by our brain power, we cannot understand Krishna. Even if we get very fine thought processes by following the yoga system, pranayama, and make the thoughts on a very dynamic level, so that we're able to make the mind move at the speed of the wind. Some of the yogis, they achieve tremendous mental powers. Sopyasti yad prabhata simya vinchintataka. But they cannot even approach even close to the border of Krishna's lotus feet. Simply cannot find Krishna by any material method whatsoever. Krishna reveals himself to the devotees who are interested in serving him. Atashri Krishna namadina bhagad-grahim indriyai sevon mukhi jivada swayameva spurtiyata. This is a very important verse. You should all learn this verse. That Krishna, his name, form, qualities, pastimes, paraphernalia, dham, associates, everything about him is not understandable by any material means. Sometimes people say, show me God. What qualification have they got to see him? Is it such an easy thing that you can just see God with your two eyes? Krishna is not perceivable to the mundane senses, but he reveals himself to those who are inclined to serve him. And that service begins by the tongue. The tongue. This is all inconceivable. Now, who would think that the tongue is the way to God realization? If you stick your tongue out, that's considered rude, is it? To show your tongue? Or in Bengali culture, that shows some kind of shame or something like that. Is it in, I think not in Tamil culture, is it also? It's bad. Yeah. So I think throughout the world it's considered something unusual to show your tongue. But the tongue is the means to realize Krishna. By chanting the name of Krishna. Okay, so? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And eating. Bhakti yoga, eating yoga. Generally we think of yoga, not eating. But this yoga is must eat. No eating, no yoga. No eating, then don't get Krishna. But even the eating that is in the spirit of service, chanting is in the spirit of service. That's the important point, in a spirit of service. Just this little point has to be understood, and everything is understood. As we just sung. Jeev Krishna Das Abhishas Karle Ta Ardu Kane. We are Jiva, we are eternal spirit soul, we are not the body. We are eternal servants of Krishna. We simply have to understand this, accept this, and all our problems are finished. Because all our problems are caused by not accepting it. So all these questions come up that, just like, I'll do my degree as a service to Krishna, and I'll study and have a great career, and all this. But the whole point is it actually motivated by service to Krishna? Do we know what service to Krishna means? It's just like we go in so many shops and offices, and people say, I'm a karma yogi. They're not karma yogis, they're just karmis, they're just working. But they like to think, I am a karma yogi. Just in their imagination, they're working as yoga for a higher principle. So in the same way, everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. Bhakti yoga is different to karma yoga. To put it in a simple way, we can say that karma yoga means to do what we want to do and offer the results, or some of the results, to Krishna. And bhakti yoga means to do what Krishna wants us to do. So, the idea that, I will fulfill all my material desires and offer that to Krishna, maybe it's karma yoga. If one is actually in pure consciousness, then maybe, if it's required, he can do this degree and everything specifically as a service to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions? You had a question this morning? You wanted to ask a question after a class this morning? No, you didn't. Alright. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, you have the question there?
So, in a current situation where there are
By Mayavadi, do you mean materialist, or do you mean those who adhere to the philosophical misconception that of undifferentiated monism? Because generally we don't have that much discourse with like hardcore Mayavadis. Oh, that helps. What should we do? Well, that I was discussed this morning, right? Asat Sangati Age Vaishnavacha. Stri Sangi Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta. The Vaishnav is typified by giving up association with non-devotees. And the two types of non-devotees are those who are addicted to the association of women for sense gratification, and those who are determined non-devotees of Krishna. So the best thing is keep association with devotees. Kali Yuga is very difficult, as you might have noticed. Therefore, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalo Nasteva Gatiranyata. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Kale Doshani De Rajan Nastihi Eko Mahan Guna Kirtana Deva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Prajet. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but we can cross over that ocean and go to Krishna by Krishna Kirtan. But that means we actually have to chant the holy names. We are contaminated by association with non-devotees. Even if we go among non-devotees for preaching, some effect of their bad association may be there. Unless and until we're fully strong in Krishna consciousness, then we're likely to be affected by others. Therefore, we have to practice Krishna consciousness very strongly by hearing and chanting about Krishna assiduously. Give some hours every day. If not all day, then some hours every day to hearing and chanting about Krishna. That will help to keep us pure in this contaminated age. Any more questions?
How should be the relation between Guru and disciple? Can you refer some books about Guru-disciple relation? What is the qualification of disciple?
When Srila Prabhupada performed the first initiation ceremony in the Western world, after it was over, after he initiated the devotees, he told them that, they asked him the same question, and he said that the disciples should think of the Guru as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After he initiated them. That's what Shastra says. Which leads to some disbelief. And therefore some people say, well, that can't be true, that must be exaggerated. Or maybe the gurus aren't really gurus because they don't really seem to be as good as God. Anyway, that's what Shastra says. Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna himself says it. Not as God, but as good as in as much as represents God. Guru is supposed to represent God by acting in Krishna consciousness and guiding others in Krishna consciousness. And the disciple, we read Prabhupada the other day from his lecture, the disciple accepts the instructions of the Guru as his life and soul. There is a book available in English, The Spiritual Master and the Disciple, an anthology of Srila Prabhupada's writings on this topic. Yeah.
If a devotee is not taking Vanaprastha after the age of 50 years due to family attachment, what is his position in going back home to Godhead?
What is anyone's position in going back to Godhead? That's ultimately up to Krishna. Yeah. So you can't say exactly. But the injunction is there in Shastra that one should come out of family attachment from the age of 50 because family attachment is that which destroys spiritual understanding. Deha what is it? Deha patya kalatradishu atmasaineshu satsvapi apashyatam atmatattvam griheshu grihametinam. These are from the very first instructions of Shukadeva Goswami. That one, or the grihamedi, or the attached householder, accepts as his shelter his body. He accepts as reality his body, his children, his wife, and so on. Even though they are asat, temporary, without any real reality, he accepts them as actual reality. Thus he is blind to knowledge of self-realization. So these are the stern warnings of Srimad Bhagavatam, which nowadays we're just nice to everyone, so we don't discuss that much. But that kind of niceness is a violence. The niceness by which we watch people spoil their chance for going back to Godhead, that's not niceness. The words of Bhagavatam are words of harsh reality. They hurt, no doubt, because we take these attachments as being intrinsic to my reality. It's like Karna was born with that armor directly on his body. So when he had to take it off, it must have been extremely painful to do so. So these material attachments, we take it as part of our very being, although it is not. So to cut them is very painful. And we don't want to give anyone pain, do we? But the doctor's duty is to give pain to heal others. The doctor has to lance a boil, which is painful. If the boil is to be treated, he says, no, I don't want to give any pain. Then he's completely foolish and rascal. He's not a doctor at all. He must give pain for the benefit of the afflicted person. So this idea that we shouldn't discuss these things, people might become disturbed. This is bizarre in the society of the devotees to say that we shouldn't discuss these things because people may become disturbed. Is what's this, some clown's act, or what's going on here? We're supposed to discuss these things. And I'll take one more question and go. Okay, go ahead, whatever's there. I'm not going to give a very long reply. I wonder the answer can be long. In one book, what's that? In one book, what?
In one book, the author has written.
The author. Okay. I didn't.
Book distribution is the topmost service and all other services are subordinate. Is this subordinate word correct for other services?
Say in Tamil.
ஒரு புத்தகத்தை அதனுடைய ஆசிரியர் எழுதியிருக்கார். புத்தக விநியோகம் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் மிக உயர்ந்த சேவை. அந்த சேவை எல்லாமே அதுக்கு கீழ்ப்படிதல் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி, கீழ்ப்படிதல் அப்படின்னு அவர் எழுதிக்கக்கூடியது மற்ற எல்லா சேவைகளுக்கும் கீழ்ப்படிதல் அப்படின்னு எழுதிக்கக்கூடிய சரியான உத்தமமான வார்த்தையா?
Well, Srila Prabhupada wrote in a purport in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam that in our Krishna conscious movement, all services are centered around distribution of books. Elsewhere he clarified that all services are transcendental if they're executed for the pleasure of Krishna. So in a materialistic way, if we try to emphasize, my service is better than yours, that's not devotional service at all. At the same time, Prabhupada is making it very clear how much emphasis he's putting toward this distribution of his books. If we can escape from this mentality of thinking, I am better than others, then we could start to serve Krishna. As long as we have that mentality, whatever we do, even if we distribute lots of books, it may not be very pleasing to Krishna. But if one has that mentality, then we won't be able to distribute books for a long time anyway, or do anything, because that mentality drags us to material life. It doesn't help us to advance in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sevan mukhe hi jivado swayameva spurati adaha. Thank you, prasadam again. Prasada seva, serving prasadam, honoring prasadam. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.